we're so happy that all of y'all have come today, and appreciate Beth and staff having us up here. We're going to talk today about hair restoration. And to begin with, there's no one way, no one correct way to do it. I'm just going to tell basically how I do it, and y'all may know a better way, or you may, want to mix and everything. That's fine too. What I really look at when I go to get a doll to do hair restoration, I want to see what the doll is. I want to identify the doll to see how the doll looked originally. That I like to try to get dolls back to not necessarily to where they look off the assembly line. I want them to look though good. And that's why I like to research to see what they look like originally. And then I have a guide that I can kind of go by. When I go to do wigs or hair, of course, Mount Alexandra used, all the different wigs. And then she also had the wool wigs, she had the human hair wigs, plus she used saran. Well, depending on what type of wig, you're going to use different products. If it's one of the merino wool, one of the wool wigs, you're going to use what I use is, there it is, baby shampoo. And that's what I use to wash the wool wigs with and the human hair wigs. And then I will use a conditioner with it. And the conditioner, make sure you don't get one of the 2-for-1 conditioners. Sometimes you go in stores now, they've got the conditioner and the shampoo. You want the separate, just the plain conditioner. And basically what I go to do is, if it's a wig that needs to be curled, I'll go ahead on, curl the wig up. Now this is the mohair. You curl, or human hair, curl it up, and then I will wash it. With this, I will put it in this bucket. This is my bucket that I wash wigs in. And then I will, swish it around a little bit. And when the water starts to get dirty, redo it again. Pour it out, put clean water in. And I pretty much do that until the water stays clean. And then once it stays clean, and sometimes that can vary, be a couple hours, it can be, all evening, whatever it takes. Then I'll wash it out really good, and then that's when I use the conditioner on it. And I just basically squirt some conditioner on it, work it in, and this is with the curlers still in. And then I'll go ahead on and rinse it. And then once I've rinsed all the chemicals out, then I use this. This is nothing but a styrofoam ball that I have put Reynolds wrap on. And this is what I use to put, and of course they come in different sizes depending on what size wig I had. It just so happened this particular one I used on a 30 Shirley Temple wig. So this is what I use to dry the wig. I put it on to hold the shape, and then that's how I go ahead on and just sit it there and just until it dries. Usually it takes a couple of days. Sometimes I keep it on there a week, just until it's fully dry. And then I'll take the curlers out. And when you do that, then the curls are set in the wigs. So now if it's a saran wig, I do somewhat the same type of thing, except I wash it using Dawn. And just the plain Dawn. None of these fancy Dawns, just the plain one, the original. And then I'll use fabric softener to rinse it, instead of conditioner. And this particular one I use the free and clear because it has no dyes in it to stain anything. And that will help keep the frizz down on the saran hair. And then after I do that, of course I will put it on you have different sizes of those depending on the size wig you've got. And once it dries, then you're going to attach it back to the doll. And taking a wig off, if the doll is still pretty, that wig is pretty tight on the doll, now this does not work for composition, but for hard plastic, you can take a wet cloth and kind of place it along to try to loosen the glue up. and then carefully peel the wig off of the doll. And then once you get the wig, you go to try not to tear the skull cap that's underneath the wig, because you're going to use that to glue the wig back on. And when you have peeled it off, you want to try to get as much of the glue off the hard plastic as you can. You're not going to get all of it, but you want to get enough of it that the other wig will stick back on it. And in doing that, sometimes water, depending on what type of glue they've used, sometimes you can wet it and it'll take it off. I sometimes use a glue eraser that I get. Dollar Tree has got a glue eraser that I use of all places, and that sometimes with water you can work the glue off the off the head. And then when we go, after we get the head prepared, then I go head on and I'm going to reattach the wig. Now the hard plastic dolls have got a metal piece up here in their head that gets popped out if they have to work inside the head. Do not glue over that metal piece. So what you're going to want to do is put maybe a dot of glue, say up in the crown, and initially that's where I put the glue, and then I put the wig down on the doll's head, position it, and then I'll just raise it up and put little dots around the hairline. And you don't want to put a whole lot because you don't want it running down the doll's head, but put it down enough to where it will hold it. And the glue that I typically use is this tacky glue. I like that to attach, and we've used that on all the wigs that I've had to replace, and it works. It's quick. And now I let all of them dry for at least 24 hours before I mess with them once I've attached it, sometimes 48. Now some people like to use the Elmer Schoolhouse glue. I just like the tacky glue because when you put it on the doll, it grabs it almost immediately. So, and plus both of these are water soluble, so if you get it on something, you can wipe it off very easily. So I really like that. They're the products that I use to reattach it. Now, as far as doing the curls, you can do them depending on what size curl you need. You twirl it around a pencil. You can use the old pipe cleaners. You can use those. But if you need a little bit bigger curl, I usually use these. Yeah, and this is what I use to do. If I need like little ringlets, if I need any type of curl, just the different sizes in these, and I will use the perm papers. I will wrap that around the hair when you're doing it, and then just wrap it with these on the curlers. For instance, I know this is Madame Alexander, but I did do this on a 1930 Shirley doll that I had. I had a wig that was already off the doll, and it was completely straight. I mean, it was just no curl left in it. So basically, we went in and you just kind of separated it using a rat-tailed comb. This is what I used just to pull it out. And then I just put the paper around it and then rolled it up. Well, actually, I rolled it like this because we wanted the ringlets. And then I just washed it. It sat it in the bucket, cleaned it with the Johnson's baby shampoo and everything, and then let it dry on my little ball there. And then after it was fully dry, I took the curlers out, and the little curls just went right on back up. It's amazing. It's really neat to watch it. But another technique you can use too is these little things, these little clamps. Yeah, that sometimes people have told me. Now, I haven't used this technique yet, but some of the people have told me that what you can do is wrap it in a pencil and use those to hold to do ringlets. I have not tried that technique yet, but a lot of restorers have told me that's a good one to use. So basically, that's when you're dealing with a wig and you have one that's really soiled. That's pretty much the technique I use. Now, if I get a doll that, say, you do not have to take the wig off and that you just need to calm it down, or it has some straight areas that need to be worked back in. Basically what I do with that is I try water at first. And sometimes using these rat tail combs that I use, and all of my combs that I use are strictly used for dolls. I do not use after they've been on a human hair, don't want the oils, don't want any of that. So all of my dolls, even though I get these at Sally's Beauty Supply, they are human combs. They are just strictly what I use for my dolls. So a lot of times I'll use this, the rat tail, to work, say like in this doll, I haven't done her yet, but she's got a lot of frizzies.
Right.
And basically what I would do is when I go to restore her, I will take this and try to work the curl back into the little ringlets. Now, what I would have to do, and this is probably what I'll do with this, is if I can't get that to work, I'll use toothpicks. Toothpicks are wonderful for doing hair. And a lot of times what I'll do is I will wet those, and just in some water, and that gives it a little bit of texture to grab some of these loose hairs, and it'll help you work it back into the curl. So actually you probably use that more than actually the rat tail. But then, depending on the doll, now I would not do this with a mohair wig or human hair, any of those, because you don't want bugs. But with the saran hair, you know, a lot of dolls when they were original, they had a hard curl. And over the years, that hard curl has broken down. And sometimes you need something to create that hard curl again. Then I'll use a little bit of hair gel and work it back in the curl. But like I said, only do that with saran. I do not do that with any of the others. And usually what I'll do is just dip a toothpick in it, and just dip it, and then just kind of slowly work it. And that will eventually, this particular one that I've got, even though after it dries, it'll be a little stiff, but you can still move it around. It's not like a plaster where, you know, some hair gels you can't budge after you've put it on hair. This one you can still move it around, but it will hold it in place. So it depends on what kind of hair I'm doing, what kind of curl. If I need it to be a permanent curl that I don't want to move at all, I've got another type of hair gel that I use for those. So it just depends on what I'm using, what I'm trying to do as to what technique or chemicals that I use. Now, a lot of times what I'll use, and I've got a whole bag of combs and brushes and everything that I use, but I use picks a lot. And those, like if I have are like a real tight curly hair, like they had some of the little grocery store dolls from the 1950s, and it had the real curl. A lot of times when I have washed those, I use the Dawn, and then I'll just towel dry it. And then afterwards, just take a little pick and just kind of fluff the curls back out. And that way, it's still, you got the original curl, but it really does a beautiful job with it. And you don't want to run it through the curls because you don't want to flatten the curls. So you just work it with the pick. And this comb here I got at Sally's. This has been a wonderful comb for saran hair because it does not create static electricity. And that I just came across, just dumb luck, did not know that it would do that. And I just got it because I liked the teeth on it, and it was a heavy comb. And I took it home, and I was doing some Barbies, some modern day Barbies that have just the straight hair and had really frizzy hair. So I just washed it and decided to try that comb. Well, I noticed it did not frizz. It was just as slick and really did a beautiful job with it. So now, if it's a job that I have a lot of frizzy, potentially frizzy hair, even though you put the fabric softener on it, or the conditioner, sometimes it'll still frizz a little bit. But that comb really just smooths it right on out. One of the other things I forgot to mention, when I go to put the wig back on, you want, after you have glued it, you want to put something around the hair to hold it in place. And sometimes I'll just use ribbon. I save everything, even things that come in the mail, yeah, anything that I think I can use for restoration, and like old ribbons and stuff. And I'll wrap it around, but not where I've curled it. I'll wrap it between the curls. Not only you're not flattening the curls out, but use something now, like a small doll like that. If I was to put a wig on, I'd use like a rubber band. You know, something that you know, will keep it hard. And that's what I do until it dries. And then once it's dried, then of course you can take it off. It looks like a science experiment when when you see it. It's really funny looking. But anyhow, that's pretty much in a nutshell how, when I go to do doll restoration, the hair, that's pretty much the techniques that they use.